And this is the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. This is a regular meeting. It is Thursday, January 12th, 2023. It is 2:02 p.m. This session is set to go until 3 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting. We're in the atrium, 3000 Pacific Avenue Southeast, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Also in the boardroom, we have County Manager Travis, as well as Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell, and we have the budget team here as well as Jenica Machado, Nicole Martinez, the Budget Fiscal Manager, as well as Diana Aarons, who's our Senior Budget Analyst, and Jenica Machado is our Economic Development Program Manager. Okay, so we are discussing today the American Rescue Plan ARPA spending update. So who am I passing this to?
Share the screen.
Sure. And I'm going to turn this straight over to Diana.
Good afternoon. We're bringing to you once again a look at the American Rescue Plan Act spending briefing. And also part of today's agenda, we'd like to present information about a potential broadband to rural Thurston County project, potential movement of dollars from under consideration. We are hoping for a decision on that today. Next slide, please. So we'd like to start out by looking at the expenditure rate and current allocation. Next slide. Currently, we are at 15.9 million, or 28% of the $56.4 million award spent to date. Last time we looked at this, we were about at 25%. So we spent about 3% since that time. And as a reminder, these funds must be spent or obligated under contract by December 31st, 2024, with final obligated expenditures occurring by December 31st, 2026. Currently, there are $17 million in earmarks, which are not yet approved for specific projects. So a significant amount of funds has been moved into the approved column, but 17 million still awaits in the under consideration status. There is still a slower pace of spending for some of these projects, in particular, the Decrease the Court Backlog project. 17% of the funds for that project are, of the approved and earmarked funds have been spent. And the nonprofit organization grants project is spent out. Next slide, please. This is a look at the ARPA projects, a table of the projects with amount approved, amount under consideration, cumulative expenditures to date, and the amount remaining, which has been approved.
Robin, 1 second. Robin,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. So Diana, I'm looking at the court backlog. And if the board looks on page 5 of their packet, the Decrease the Court Backlog is almost at the very bottom of the page, 2.36C, Decrease the Court Backlog. The board has approved spending of just under 1.3 million, and so far through January, the cumulative expenditures are almost at $1 million.
That's good
So
news.
it's finally starting to see some costs. And I'm just bringing this to your attention because depending on the spending rate, do you think maybe the next time we meet with the board, we'll be asking them to move a little more money into the approved column for this purpose?
I'm sorry, Robin, was that a question for me?
Yeah.
Oh, I would anticipate yes, and also potentially there's a potential to free up funds for other projects if the commissioners wish to do so.
Right. Okay, great. It's good to see that they're finally spending money.
Or
Yeah,
maybe-
slow and not nearly what we thought at
Maybe the board
first,
may
but
consider
still,
just moving an additional 500,000
that's
at this
what I'm,
point. And so we don't have to wait until we reach that point,
right.
and it just give additional capacity. We'll continue to monitor.
So when we come in, I think we hold this meeting now every 2 months. So the next time we're in front of you 2 months from now, we should bring some information on the spend rate and what that's looking like and a recommendation for how much more to move over.
No, I'm suggesting the board may consider moving today.
I don't think they need to move it today. And it's not something that we put for a decision on their agenda today.
It's unlikely that we would spend the amount which is remaining, the 300,000 in the next 2 months. So there's time to provide further information for their consideration.
This will be an item under consideration, maybe possibly next time we meet.
We'll ask you for a decision next.
I'm sorry, I just jumped ahead of
And
you.
that, no, that covers it. right
Okay.
there. That was my
So right
question.
now, they've got 336,000 to work with.
Yep. We'll look at how fast it's actually spending down now.
Well, Diana stated at the beginning, they expect a decision from the board today on the broadband.
Yes, on broadband.
So what is the difference if they're gonna make a decision? Because I think the overall perspective of this meeting is if the board plans to make a decision, we announce it like that without having a specific what decision it is.
So it doesn't, they're not limited to what decisions? They
It's a
can.
decision,
Well, okay,
The
So,
agenda says ARPA spending update decision request.
yeah, so
Right.
it's not a line item decision, it's a decision they need to make.
Okay, now
The-
you-
Okay.
What we- okay. I'm just trying to be very mindful of the,
I'm just trying to clarify as well.
I appreciate that.
So the end result, if we do move 500,000, that's gonna get moved out of the 1.3?
No, the
No.
board-
Yeah, it gets
Out of the
4.2.
4.2.
We would reduce the 4.2,
Okay, so that would be reduced and still leaving us
a
about,
lot of money.
yeah, for some, potentially, we could decide for some other issue at some later date.
Exactly.
Most likely.
And that's gonna be about, I don't know, 375 or something like that.
Yep.
I have a question, in regard, do you have a question?
Not really.
So I know district court had their, I don't remember the name of the, but we funded a pilot project for them for,
Bracelets,
yeah.
Yeah.
ankle bracelets.
Ankle
and
bracelet,
alcohol.
the scants, I don't.
Scram.
Scram, thank you. And so I know that they've been requesting it to be extended to another year. We only did 1 year to see like if this idea would even, how it would work, and they've been able to provide some data that it's been successful. So I know that's been their request on kind of extending this project for another year. I'm wondering if this has been something that they've discussed with staff about extending it to another year, or kind of how that.
Frankie brought that idea up. And Diana, could you confirm that that's item 1-4-C, the substance abuse monitoring?
That's correct.
Great. So you'll see here that so far,
Step up
they've
the
only
budget.
spent $112,000.
Okay.
So there is plenty of money should the board want to extend it.
No, but the board took an action to carry over
Yeah,
the underline item from 2023, so they're continuing to spend on that. So that was part of your budget decisions to carry
Right.
over that
there's
remaining amount.
capacity and they should continue.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So
Were there any discussion
thumbs
topics?
up, or what did you have in mind?
No, just.
At this point, no?
let it-
It's gonna be a
let
total package.
it- Let them go through perhaps
Yeah.
and then we'll
Yeah.
come back for any potential decisions.
Go ahead, Diana, back to you.
Sure, I was just wondering if you might like to advance the slide. We could look at the second page of projects and see if there were any discussion topics around these.
Because this, right here is the broadband. That's the proposal, right, Jenica? Would you like to speak about that?
So the Nisqually tribe has previously provided project information regarding a joint Thurston County, Nisqually, and Pierce County broadband project that will be submitted to the Washington State Broadband Office for the round 2 of Infrastructure Acceleration Grant. The board previously has approved a $500,000 broadband coverage survey and $465,000 to engineer the proposed route. Unfortunately, since the time that Nisqually has provided that project overview, WSBO changed the ceiling amount of individual grants that they'll be handing out. And so Nisqually had worked with WSBO to develop their proposed project based off the amount that WSBO was going to provide as a grant. That has changed. It moved from a 25 million max grant amount to 12 million. And so Nisqually has done some revision based off this reduction of a potential grant award. And so Nisqually has said that they believe it's possible to maintain the original route that they had proposed in their project, both in Pierce County and Thurston County, with an additional allocation. And so Pierce County has approved, I believe, $1 million to maintain their route, and Nisqually is asking Thurston County for an additional 1.1 million to maintain the route for the project. And they will still be submitting their application at the max grant amount of 12 million to WSBO. Nisqually noted that the 1.1 million will maintain the route because material costs have come down since the project was originally planned earlier in 2022. I believe that's a large portion of it. Additionally, with our 465,000 allocation for engineering, which Pierce County also provided, they're able to pull out the engineering from the project, and so that's not part of what they'd be submitting in their grant. Also, they said actual costs have become more apparent now that we're closer to when project implementation is, and they've reduced the contingency costs built into the budget. And so I'm happy to take any questions. I also printed out the route if anybody wanted a refresh of what that looked like.
Thank you, Jenica. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I guess why the reduction from 25 to 12? Do you know why?
I wouldn't be able to accurately speak on that.
The state is the one who changed the cap.
Yeah, but.
We were under the
but
impression-
why did they change the cap?
I don't know, because the state is flooded with money for broadband.
No idea.
No, I really don't have an answer. as
And
to
is
why
that
they
a
reduced
done deal, or did just somebody pick that out of the air and said,
I won't be able to tell you why, the reasons why, Commissioner.
yeah, but I'm wondering if it makes sense for us to back up their decision if we don't even know why they did something. And then we go along with it and do another $1 million reduction that maybe we weren't planning on. That's all. I mean, I hate to make a change of that amount without knowing anything
I
about.
believe the application period is open and coming to a close soon. And so Nisqually will need to decide if they're submitting this project.
Okay, I'll hear from my seatmates, I guess.
So we're losing 12.5 million, but with 2.1 million, one from Pearson, 1.1 from Thurston, they think they can deliver the same project because they're removing contingencies and costs have come down. Are they putting more money in? I mean, how are they?
Well, we've also, so when we provided the engineering costs, so we approved 465,000 to engineer the route. Pierce County also did that. And so what was originally built into that budget included engineering costs, but now we've covered that. And so they were able to remove all engineering from the project.
Okay, so that's another million, but that's still a gap of like 9 million. I mean, I'm just, if that's what you're telling me, doesn't sound like a terrible deal. It's, you know, I mean, 12 million, half million free money is still $12.5 million, you know, it's not as good as 25, but As long as that's realistic, given, then, and that's
I didn't-
kind of what we put this money aside to do, so I guess, I don't know.
I didn't hear an answer though to your question of, are they putting anything in
So,
or more?
so we lost 12.5 million. Thurston's gonna backfill 1 million in .1, Pierce gonna backfill 1 million, and the rest is just accounted out, or is Nisqually also backfilling 1 million, or some other entity getting closer to that lost 12.5 million?
I don't believe Nisqually is adding additional funds. I believe it was a 12 million change, 465 on each end for their engineering, so almost 1 million. 1 million from Pierce County, another 1 million plus from Thurston County. And then that delta was material costs coming down, actual costs becoming more apparent, and a reduction in contingency.
So they redid the cost estimate.
And how much was Nisqually prior to the change in the state cap? How much was Nisqually already committing to this project?
Of their individual funds.
How come we oftentimes get asked to do stuff without knowing much? I don't know, I don't, it just bugs me. It isn't like, obviously we've got some funding here to make it all work, but
Maybe
if
what,
they,
what kind of questions do you like, and we can explore those questions with the Nisqually tribe.
well, how can they fulfill it with $9 million short of what they were thinking or something? I don't know what,
To be
Lower
more,
costs.
yeah, that's a lot.
no
So is it
contingency.
padded a bit or? I mean,
well, and it's not unusual when you have the infancies of a project to have a lot of contingency, right? And sometimes the contingency budget, depending on where you are on the infancy of the project, could be sometimes 50%. So that may be what they did, refining the actual cost since the engineer is already done, so they have a little more. But I think the good question is how much money the Nisqually tribe is contributing, because I thought they were contributing financially to this project as well.
I didn't worry too much about it at the front end because we weren't being asked for too much. And it was this big grant application and, okay. But now that, there's this gap and we've all gotta, it's kind of like, well, what is this partnership? Is it equal thirds? Is it?
Yeah, what's it consist of? I mean, we're kicking in more in Pierce County now.
That was my
Oh, that's a good
question
question,
on
that's
like
a good
why,
question.
how did they come up with those figures, right? Of like 1 million for Pierce County and 1.1 million for Thurston County.
Did somebody negotiate that? or-
Like, just kind of seeing that breakdown, is it because we're gonna have more connectivity than Pierce County perhaps, like, just
More
seeing.
miles, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
is
more
it
miles.
by the mile? But I
So-
mean, don't you think we ought to know some of those
So
things
just,
before we
yeah, that little
commit?
breakdown,
That's all.
I'm kind of on the same page, right? When it was, less, it's kind of easy, but now that it is 1.1, I'm still supportive of the project. I just think that there's some things that we need answered if we're gonna allow or grant a 1.1 million. And it's not like, we don't have the set aside. It is right there under consideration. We have 3 million, a little bit more than $3 million set aside, but I think there's still a couple of things that, and I understand the contingency, right? But if that is the case, like, we would like to know, like, oh yeah, we just overestimated certain costs and,
Who's
you know.
working with on this project? Is the EDC involved at all on this? or
Not in,
Who else is involved?
it's Pierce County and Nisqually and us.
so. When is the grant application due?
I believe in the next week.
In the next week?
This week is ending.
Yeah, when this request came, we didn't have any commissioner meetings, and so we had decided to put it on this timeframe, but
Could we get more information by next Tuesday? Is that a possibility?
sure, I'll definitely reach out to them right after this meeting.
I'm looking at the grant application website and it's due on January 17. And the grant application requires a 10% cash match for the 12 million. I believe that is what the 1.1 million is. Is that correct, Jenica?
We meet the cash match, additionally, I believe because they're counting our survey as part of match and our engineering.
Engineering, which is,
When
Yeah.
is January 17th?
Tuesday?
Pretty darn quick, 5
Tuesday.
days from now.
Is it Tuesday?
So the tribe needs to know.
So they need to know.
maybe suggestion be contingent, his contribution. Can we have a contingent commitment?
On that, based on that information,
Contingent on what?
on
Wait.
the information that we received back from
I
Jenica.
think there is a commitment in the county, but the county will not move until we know about the grant result and how much the Nisqually is contributing.
And what the methodology was for
Right.
for calculating our contribution versus Pierce's versus.
If it's on a
But-
population, we're being kind of stuck too. We're
But
getting
perhaps
stuck.
in the spirit of cooperation, maybe just, if the board feels comfortable, just to give Jenica the authority, said, okay, we're committed, the county's committed to the 1.1 contingent to this, and that.
Well, contingent that they're satisfactory answers, but
Right.
what is satisfactory compared to, I guess,
That's
is
what I'm
what,
worried about.
Well,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you don't, I mean,
I know,
you don't write the check right now, but this commitment.
Yeah, I'll follow up on Nisqually's contribution. I don't know if they are contributing on this route. I don't believe it goes through Nisqually territory, but I'll follow up on that.
if that's understood, that makes sense, but I guess, you
Do you
know.
have, so you said,
have the routes
Yeah, they have the
here, so
routes.
maybe we could take a look.
yeah, maybe looking at that, maybe it'll make a little bit more sense if it's like
Thank you.
a little bit in Pierce County and we have the majority of this.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
But then, so assuming that this reduction.
It's a Pierce County. Oh,
And is it proportional, like, you know, like this separate doesn't help.
Assuming that this reduction had not taken place.
Where's the Pierce County line? Or is it here?
We'll pass it right on down.
Okay, we don't have that in this,
No.
right?
maybe it's not.
Extra copies.
I don't know if that's being common, but
No,
my
yeah.
question is, the original proposal was gonna be, this $25 million was gonna cover everything, and we weren't gonna, all we were gonna pay was what we already paid for engineering, and we don't know if the Nisqually had any cash into the game at that point. Did they pay for engineering of their territory, or what, I mean, what was the
so I
previous arrangement, and then how is this being modified then?
don't believe that there has been change in the arrangement in terms of how much Nisqually is involved or not. They have been working on multiple different routes with different grants. And so this is not the only one that they're working on or that they're applying for. And so I don't believe this goes through Nisqually territory. And I will double check if they're planning to contribute funds, but I don't believe so.
This really doesn't give me any information.
So they were, so the grant that,
That's kind of what they don't have.
I guess I'm just confused, it's like they were just, because they weren't trying to make money out of it, right? They were gonna, it was gonna be subcontracted to another provider, like Astound or whatever that was, but I mean, they were just going after their money for us, you know, not their territory, and they,
I believe they will own the fiber line. So
so,
whoever's applying for these grants must own the line, and so that has been a hindrance for when some other public entities have, whoever, if they were the main applicant in the grant, you would have to own the line for, I believe, 20 to 25 years. And so Nisqually, although they have these lines that are not specifically going through their jurisdiction, will own the fiber line.
We, the county will?
No,
No, the
Nisqually,
tribe.
Nisqually.
The beauty of the partnership is Nisqually did a fiber, from my point of view. The beauty of the partnership is Nisqually had done a project on their own lands. And we're looking to expand to sections that included both the tribe land and county land. And in working together with the tribe, the agreement, I believe, covers some projects that are only county land. But because the tribe brings the experience in managing now these types of projects and are willing to be the owners of the line, because we don't wanna
We
own
don't wanna
fiber
own it.
lines.
I thought a vendor was
We don't
gonna
want to.
own it.
No, operate it.
That is the beauty of and so they're basically being the project managers here. If
So
there's none of this
we
route.
made a big, significant difference between owning the asset and managing the asset. So the Nisqually tribe is gonna own the asset, the fiber lines, but the operation is, you may remember, they had one vendor to be aligned, but these lines are gonna be open to anyone who wants to compete for the operations.
Open access lines.
I mean, I think all I would need is just kind of a one paragraph explanation of the thought process of just, you know, we're asking for Pierce for $1 million and Thurston for $1.1 million because blah, whatever, because you know, 55% of the miles are in Pierce or because, I mean, just what is the rationale so we can feel comfortable that the price tag we're agreeing to is a fair one for the taxpayers of Thurston County?
I mean, even though we're using pass-through money, we still should, I think we should
No,
keep track of
it's
it.
still your responsibility of equitable distribution, that's what, yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
And the money
nothing-
has to be used within our jurisdictional boundaries.
Yeah, so what is it? Maybe it's 75% gonna be used in Pierce County and 25% here. And so Pierce County is getting a hell of a deal because we're paying more. I don't know.
Hopefully that's not the case.
Well, but we don't know. We don't know anything. I mean, gosh,
Well, you
doing stuff
do
into the
know a lot,
line.
Commissioner.
Not as much as I'd like to know, though. Yeah.
So,
So let's, for this, commissioners, is it okay to move forward with the contingency that we're gonna get a response back from the Nisqually tribe, and then on Tuesday morning at agenda setting, we could discuss it maybe first thing, and
how about packed agenda, 3 executive sessions, but
I
yeah,
I
we'll
know,
find time.
I saw 2 on there.
I need to add another one.
Okay, how about this? Why can't, Jenny could just make a phone call and ask for a communication
Step
and,
out and do that right now.
yeah, I mean, do something
Well,
and see if you get an answer.
Yeah.
I was speaking with them before the meeting, so I know.
And then when you get an answer, it'd be nice to
Well,
have
you know, we
that.
can just eavesdrop on your conversation right now.
It would be nice to get
No, this is going to,
Okay.
it'd be nice to get an email
go.
of that in writing to a degree, you know?
Maybe, well, she does that, we can.
Yeah.
Do the
we'll-
other
we'll
stuff,
keep going.
yeah.
I got more questions to fill the time, so let's,
I'll be right back.
we need to wait.
Thank you, Jenica.
Okay,
Other questions?
Commissioner?
Oh, we're ready for that? Okay, well, looking at my notes from last meeting and remembering this morning, Commissioner Mejia was talking about some big project regarding Southport Financial. And looking at my notes from this last ARPA meeting, it says affordable housing proposal, Southport Financial is requester, need a letter of commitment by March 31st, create a path through the RHC, Lansdale Point, 911 Burr Road Southeast. So that's not, we didn't this morning talk anything about ARPA, we were talking
No.
about some other funding source.
So the,
How does this connect?
I'll give you,
So this is where we first discussed Southport, was at the previous ARPA meeting where we brought forth the PowerPoints, because that was their first avenue was through ARPA. Now, the discussion that we had last time in regards to ARPA was, you know, for these kind of projects, they need to go through the RHC. Like, they can't, you know,
But is the RHC considering asking us to use ARPA?
so yesterday, the proponent said you need to pass a resolution to, a motion to request the county to use ARPA funds. Second, or request the county to make a direct allocation from other funds. So I raised my hand and they said, with all due respect, this is not the purview of the Regional Housing Council to provide recommendations to the county commissions to allocate funds other than what is within the umbrella of the RHC. Like ARPA. The ARPA is for you to decide, not for the RHC to tell you or suggest to you how the ARPA funds should be. Because that's a can of worms that perhaps you don't want to open. And so that's how the whole conversation evolved on using what is within the purview of the home fund, of the ARPA funds. Then it will be a recommendation perhaps for a loan as
Is
commissioner.
there an alternative? Is there an alternative path for us to use ARPA, not using the RHC? Because we're saying that ARPA is not really there for them to play with, but this board can discuss that.
So then, I mean, you can do that, but I'd like you to remember the set aside for affordable housing is the intent to contribute after the request for proposals is issued.
Say that again?
For the request for proposals
Yeah.
that we're gonna be issuing later in the year. The intent of the 5 million is to build affordable housing in the Franz Anderson site that you already contribute using ARPA funds.
So we've spent that set aside.
No, you
Or we,
haven't
I mean,
spent.
we've earmarked it for
You
that.
earmarked 5 million, you already spent, you reallocated 1.5. Portion of that was to purchase the land, Franz Anderson with the City of Olympia.
Mhm.
And also we're helping and contributing for the site development to accommodate the tiny homes on one side, which is the City of Olympia receive a grant to do that. And the next big part is to build a vertical structure for affordable housing. And that was the $5 million intended to do that.
Right. So it'd
Go
have to
back
come from somewhere else.
So, and whether you know, I mean, you have the authority to, issue the dollars as you see please and the ARPA funds.
Well, I wasn't trying to take money, I mean, I'm not trying to do anything, I'm just wondering what the possibility is. And I wasn't suggesting we would abandon Franz Anderson, but we were just talking about $3.7 million from the court backlog, which may or may not get spent, or some other, it may not be that, it might be 2.5, might be 1.1. But there might be other projects that we have to consider. And this would be one. Now, it sounds like maybe that's not gonna work because they have a time, they would have to know.
So they,
like-
it's like similar to the Nisqually, they need just a letter of commitment, right?
They would need that, and we're not in a position to make the kind of decision because we don't really know about our court backlog. And
So,
I'm just-
yeah, so
is that right?
elaborate on what you're saying, for instance, let's play this out if I may. If RHC is gonna recommend to the board to give them a loan, $1.5 million loan. And that, the loan will be from the home fund. That's the umbrella of the Regional Housing Council, right? 2 paths for them not to pay the loan. They can apply through the regional request for proposals. and they actually get awarded cash to this project, so they don't have to pay back the loan, they can pay back the loan. Or depending on the request proposals, the board can take an action later on to say, here's ARPA funds to supplement your $1.5 million loan.
And we don't need this from the RHC.
Right.
Any longer.
So that is the options. I think there's,
Oh, so they could ask later and use it to pay back the loan that they got, but the loan's a way to get the timing requirement met. If-
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I'm just thinking if the RHC balked
Yeah,
because
of process.
the RHC, the RFP applicants raise a squawk and capture votes on the RHC to say no to this loan, this could be an alternative.
yeah, in this case, you would not be able to use ARPA funds as a loan. It just is an allocation. You say,
All right, well, I mean, like I say, I was just trying to see how this fit because I forgot that this came out 2 months ago.
You could do loans with the ARPA money, but they're extremely complicated. Yeah.
And also on the using ARPA funds, and it is just more a process for me. Because you have not opened up requests to use ARPA funds to any other outfit.
I mean, we didn't with United Way, like they came in with the
Ag Park.
request. The Ag Park came in with a
I mean, we've been
request.
doing this.
I mean, the EDC has come with multiple requests.
Well, no,
Then and then we've partnered with Thurston Strong to, like, so technically, we haven't done RFPs for any of them, right? United Way had a list of nonprofits already, and they didn't go through an RFP process that they were outlined to help, and we have a list of those where they kind of,
Because we already had a contractual agreement with United Way when we have the CRF fund, so we already set the precedent with those organizations.
So, and all of the money that we ran through Thurston Strong was to categorically eligible organizations where it was first come, first serve. It wasn't just one particular organization or it was on some application process. Basically, Thurston Strong managed that for us. The money that we ran through United Way was to organizations that were categorically eligible for grants. The
Ag Park.
yeah, the Ag Park's a little different. That's a partnership with another jurisdiction. And again, as Romero said, we already had the contract for the EDC. But that was a priority of the board.
but even with the broadband project, I mean, we didn't,
The broadband, the tribe committed to an RFP process for the provider. Broadband is a categorically eligible opportunity. And they did an RFP early on and they are providing open access lines for any provider, which is the alternative on the routes that you're looking at today.
We were gonna buy a hotel with Lacey or something. I mean, that counts because we're involved as a direct participant. That makes it
We,
different.
you know, and as you may recall, the initial allocation there was under consideration for affordable housing was close to 9 million. And the board, we worked with the board to reduce that, considering that money will not be needed to purchase the hotel.
Because we have the right of way.
Because we have the right of way, so that's coming.
initiative.
So then it was reduced to what you see today. But in the conversation, you may recall, it was really to set aside to develop the Franz Anderson. And not to say that absolutely you have the purview to allocate the money to whatever organization you see fit or whatever project you think is appropriate. So at least from my point of view, I'm not trying to prevent you to exercise your authority because you do have that authority.
But to address your question about, we chose a particular hotel rather than going through an RFP process. For hotels and the Franz Anderson property, that's a real estate transaction. So it comes with its own set of rules. Each of these things has, we've made sure that we've taken an approach that fits within the larger umbrella of federal rules for procurement. Every one of them, and they're all a little different.
Yeah, that's fine. Just so you know where I'm coming from, for me, I've tried to listen to staff and take a very balanced approach as to how all this money. But when we're getting down to the rub and there's extra money sitting there that we can't spend for our core, Tamashan,
Yep.
water main or sewer or whatever. I mean, when housing is a crisis, and so I'm gonna be looking for those. If there's money sitting on the table, that's where I'm gonna wanna go. I don't care if it's this project or something else, but, that's the kind of, if this is the best project in front of us, then that's the one I'm gonna be pointing to. If there's another one that's better, cause it's not a private, group firm, and there's things about it that are better, great. But I just wanna make sure we maximize these dollars that we may never ever see again toward the greatest need in the community has, which we know is housing.
And one of my comments yesterday was, started by saying, my comments are not to undermine the value of the project. And my comments today before you is not to undermine the value of this project. My comments come from more of a process point of view.
There, it's not like we're just giving money to a private thing. I mean, that's a massive amount of money that they can access from the state. That's public money coming to our county. So it's, to me, it's looking like a pretty shiny object there to be, to use these means and methods, whatever it is that we can get there. But Jenica's back.
And I have one answers. So, in terms of the methodology, he clarified Pierce ended up needing to provide 1.4 million, and so they did provide the 1.4 based off of percentage of aerial and underground, and there's more linear feet in Pierce County. He's mentioned aerial is less expensive than the underground. They did do slight adjustments to the route to add in more aerial and remove some of the underground to change the costs. And so it's going to maintain the same amount of passes per home, although a few of the routes change slightly to allow for aerial. As this project is not going through Nisqually land, they are not providing cash, but they are doing some in-kind work on it. And I believe that was the majority of the questions. If there are any others, I'd be happy to answer that.
Makes me feel better that Pierce is giving.
1.4.
But there's just another
Yeah.
objective.
I guess how come that
methodology
wasn't
applied.
presented to us, instead of 1 million, I guess. I'm just curious.
Well, 1 million is the number I was given. Perhaps they were saying it as roughly, it's $1 million and $1 million, without recognizing the importance of the 0.4.
Well, I mean, the grant is due on Tuesday.
I don't know why we always have to do this
I know.
under the gun.
I mean, but let me ask this, when we were county manager, we had the 5 million originally laid out for broadband, and we spent what we spent for engineering and stuff. Was there something else that you had in mind that we were gonna spend this broadband money on, something besides this, that now it's an opportunity, or it's a cost that now
So
we
I
can't spend it
guess
because we're
the
doing this?
initial intent is to put lines in the ground.
Which is what we're doing
Yeah,
here.
exactly. So this is really achieves the larger objective. It's really, and that's what Jenica and I will have many conversations. Because, I will not be bringing a proposal to the board, at least from my point of view. They continue to fund planning stuff and everything else. It's something tangible. They can go to in the ground, and that's how we got to this point is now it's an application. The school is gonna be submitting to construct the lines, and this, I believe that was the intended purpose of you set aside this money.
It wasn't something else that we're sacrificing by doing that. I mean, it seems to me we ballparked it because we didn't know what the path was to get the lines in the ground. This has emerged as the most tangible, practical way. So this is what the money was earmarked for.
Yeah, and in fact, as you may remember, at the beginning, the 500,000 the board authorized to use into the survey, even I myself, I was struggling with that because there was nothing tangible. But I guess I got to the point to recommend it to the board is because we need to start somewhere to determine what the need is. Okay, is a path. So the survey was approved, then the engineering, you heard about the engineering. Now is the next step is hopefully construction as soon as possible.
And like these maps you gave us, they're showing reds are places that aren't being served. All these white and red dots.
I believe there should be a key on the,
It's
you
based
front
on
wall.
aerial, trench, drill, aerial, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's so different. What do you guys?
I'm good with the answers they provided. I don't wanna lose out on the 12 million.
I guess going to Commissioner Edwards' point, when did we know about this
Yeah. Why are we
dropping
under
of
the
the cap?
gun?
Like, this does feel like
We're under
we're
the
giving
gun
them
again.
four.
That was early December.
yeah, I believe early December, we received the request.
We needed, oh, we just didn't have any
It-
commissioner meetings to
yeah.
fit it in, I see.
Yeah.
So it could have been something we discussed a month ago.
I mean, for things like that, is it not good to kind of get just a heads up in some way or another, just so at least we're percolating on it?
No, that's a good point.
Just a suggestion, just a heads up of, there is this request. We are having a conversation about this on this date. Because,
It helps us think of questions, because
Yeah.
it's sort of hard in the moment, like you get caught and I can't even think of what I should be asking.
Yeah, my apologies because, yeah, we should have probably found a time, but I think it was
I know it's hard with
decision
December.
to bring and
the
have the
schedule in December is
conversation
tough.
on this update. Yeah, but good points, Commissioner.
And the 12 million is gonna be enough to do the job.
Yeah, apparently.
That's what they're saying.
With a little more aerial.
Actually, the total cost is 14. The $12 million is the grant request.
Yeah, but what happens if we don't get it? Now, I mean, if they just arbitrarily cut it in half, even the amount we can ask for, now they say, well, we can't give you the 12, we can only give you 6.
Well, then either the project will be reduced in terms of the linear feet or what we can do, we need to adjust, but it's a different conversation at that point.
Is that is this the end of the agenda? This is all you needed, is us to make a decision on broadband and update us on the spending rate, or is there more to the presentation?
Were there any other things that you needed to bring up today?
No, good conversation on the affordable housing. You highlighted that, broadband, and the core backlog, those are the three big elements.
I mean, I had from my notes 25 to 28%. I mean, still seems like a fairly slow spending rate.
It's
We went
still
from
slow, but
15 to
it's picking up.
15.9 in 2 months, okay?
Right,
We've still got, I've still got $41 million,
right, we're,
17 are earmarked but not approved.
it's going slowly, but it is going. And a lot of the things that you've approved or got earmarked are like coming up. Like we need to have the conversation about the employee bonuses. That's coming up, that's a big chunk of change.
Is that the public sector workforce support?
Nope,
line
that
item?
is under lost revenue, actually.
Are we any closer on negotiations on,
That is a good question for Romero. I haven't seen an update on negotiations.
We picked that up the meetings this week. So it was a break in during the holidays.
No, the public sector was that extra pot of money that Robin, or not an extra pot of money, but an availability to kind of move
Yeah, we did the fund
Yeah.
swap,
swap to the
swap
general
thing.
fund.
Yeah, so we're
Workforce
gonna be
support.
executing that over the next 2 years.
Remember, it was like a comparison of like workforce between COVID and kind of now, and there was that comparison and how much we could get from that, and Robin estimated it was between
It's
5
the
to 7.5.
FTEs that had not been either vacant or created on or after.
So I don't need to
March
worry about that
3rd.
because that's gonna
That's
go to the
right,
general
that's in
fund
the
and be
works,
spent.
exactly.
So don't even worry about it.
So,
Okay.
right, and the lost revenue will be the same, so you've got, and the, Tamashan and
Boston
Boston
Harbor.
Harbor, we've got work plans from Jennifer Walker on what the timelines are, and those will be obligated, but those things take time.
Yeah.
So there's big chunks of money that aren't getting spent yet.
But they're moving
Things are
forward.
starting to move. I was particularly worried about the court backlog.
It's moving.
And that is two now, finally starting
To move.
get spent.
It's one item that, for you to have it in your radar. No, I'm not suggesting for you to make any decisions today, is the $1 million set aside for reserve for public health. You just set aside to respond, to continue to respond to any type of
Pandemic stuff?
pandemic stuff.
Oh, the 1.1,
Because at
that
that,
was the question I had.
because at that point, we didn't know the foundational public health was coming, there's a lot of
We
stuff.
didn't know when the emergency was gonna end for COVID-19.
And we didn't know when the funding was gonna go away. We're now hitting the end of FEMA funding supporting public health, so the con still, though, the money coming through the state is sufficient to support the effort.
And in the pandemic response, we have scaled down significantly. I mean, we don't have those large clinics, so that,
Now it's just kind of like a strike team for congregate care
yep,
outbreak or
so
something.
and that is funded by the.
That's what Kurt told me.
Exactly. So
Well,
we
that's-
can start to think about.
For you to think about that $1 million,
Well, to fund the public sector workforce, we took away from affordable housing. We took
because of the hotel, yeah.
because of, well, no, because so when we were moving kind of pots of money, we took away from affordable housing, like we took some to kind of go into that public sector workforce support. Now, my question for Robin is, for that, Robin, you said that there was an availability to go from 5, and I believe it's either 6.5 or 7.5.
So I kept trying to qualify that with, we needed to scrub the numbers, and the
Right.
closer we look at the positions, the less there is that we can swap out.
So there's,
So
so
I
5 is the
really
top.
don't think there's
That
more
makes sense.
capacity to
Okay,
do
well,
that.
that was gonna be my first, if there was capacity in that, as my first suggestion to the board was going to be to move it to that, but since there's not more capacity, since we did take away that, I don't remember if it was 1 or 2.5 away from the affordable housing
I think it was,
bucket,
yeah, it was 3 million that we.
3, then 2.
3, right in there.
Okay, then if there's that 1 million, I mean, my recommendation is to move it back to that affordable housing bucket. But conversation for next time, I think, just something for the
Did they
board.
get their financial people hired over there at Public Health?
They're in the
They need-
process,
So nothing new on that front yet?
Hiring is,
Still tough, huh? Okay.
it's rough out there. I think
So-
they're conducting interviews.
So I thought it was interesting, I'm getting off topic, but you brought up hiring in public health. I had heard consistently from the labor representative that I used to meet with on a monthly basis about problems of hiring in public health. And I would communicate that, and it never really seemed to get anywhere. And then Kurt made a comment at one of our recent meetings that one of his outgoing parting statements is, there's a problem in public health regarding hiring. And I want to get to the bottom of that and fix it. I don't know exactly, I mean, I don't know if it's the same problem that I was hearing back from Hannah, a year or two ago. But when Kurt, validates that, it seems like we need to, something about somebody who can approve, moving positions forward. We authorize things and then they stall at
So
the division directors.
so
and
what, okay,
something
what-
like that?
okay, now, so what happened is the process in which a position is posted, right? And so what he was talking about is resolving how internally to public health is moving forward those positions. And before the department has to initiate that request, goes to HR, Robin, and myself. That process is seamless. It takes probably 2-3 days for us to review that.
Once it gets to Romero and me.
It's really,
But it was getting hung
it's
up
seamless, because I absolutely
That's what Hannah was saying.
make a point when I see the email is to approve, because I know how important that is. But what Kurt was talking about is internal to public health. That process needs to streamline.
That's what Hannah was saying too.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And it was fun, and I think they're in the process of addressing that.
And that seems just, it makes my head explode, because that does not seem difficult to fix.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
It's not easy to get a position posted and.
why am I only hearing about this with respect to public health?
Well,
So,
Okay.
without getting too
Public
much,
Works,
I don't want to use names here, but for instance, public health was funneled to a single person. Right, and a single person workload, whatever, doing other things, just didn't have time. So the other departments, they have the managers initiates that process, because the managers, they understand the position and they just move forward and go through that process. I think that is what Kurt is planning to change to.
I don't think that that's quite the process in other departments either, because like in central services, I have a person in the commissioner's office, there's someone who's authorized to go into the system. And I think there's other things going on.
But I think is the groundwork what is missing?
I agree with that.
All I'm saying is, we don't have to fix it today. All I'm saying is, David's here, he's new. Please let him know about this issue and get it solved.
He does.
Because it's silly that I've been hearing about this for 2 years now, and it's affecting, now with our problems with workforce and availability, like it was already a problem, and now it's just becoming more of a problem, because we're already having challenges, even if we had a seamless
And
process.
we might be missing out on reimbursements that we're supposed to be getting because it isn't done in a timely manner.
With the communal health
I agree.
disease director, that position, even after that person left, wasn't posted for months. And that position took over a year to hire back then, and then that person left, and I would have imagined that, there would have been a priority to fill that position. And it was months and months. I think it was December when I finally brought it up to Kurt, and I was like, hey, Kurt, I looked online and this position isn't posted, what's going on with that?
That is the process that Romero was referring to that is broken.
Okay, little off topic, it is 3 p.m.
So I
So
do
I think it's a
wanna-
decision that you need to concur on this or not.
Yeah, do we have concurrence on approving the 1.1 million for the broadband?
Thumbs up, thumbs down, commissioners.
Excellent, thank you for that.
Under consideration to,
You notice how we were all pretty thrilled about that vote?
I saw
Notice
the
that?
weak thumbs. And then next time, we'll tell you about new flexibility that was passed by Congress for this money. Because we didn't have time for that today. So, yeah, yeah,
then we can,
Okay,
maybe.
we are adjourned, thank you.
and maybe next.